welcome to another session of Innovation Sparks. Today, we're plunging headfirst into a topic that it's not just relevant, but downright controversial in our digital age. Opinions on this phenomenon vary widely among media experts. Some see it as a looming challenge, while others consider it as a passing trend. We're talking about breaking the news avoidance barrier, a puzzle we will hopefully dissect in today's episode. But we won't stop there. We'll also uncover the secrets to winning over new loyal audiences while exploring some of the best practice experiences shared by our guests. News avoidance, especially among the younger generations, but not just, has emerged as a formidable foe for media outlets worldwide. Many websites have felt the turbulence with fluctuating traffic and dwindling user engagement. The big question looming over us is how can media not just survive, but thrive in the midst of this shift? Is the key to success found in innovative, visually captivating storytelling, or can the allure of well-written, well-crafted content still hold sway? In the end, even if news avoidance turns out to be more of a temporary thing with every new social media platform on the market, online media outlets undoubtedly have stronger competition to race with. So join us on what promises to be, hopefully, an exciting discussion and journey as we navigate the ever-evolving media landscape. Prepare to be inspired, because that's one of our goals as we introduce at this time to two extraordinary guests who may not have conquered these challenges yet, but have come up with good strategies in their respective media markets. First in the line is Ronja Brier, the Deputy Editor-in-Chief at Watson in Germany, one of the most influential online media outlets for younger audiences, if I may say. Ronja is here to share her wealth of experience and insights into the German media landscape. But that's not all.
As Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Watson, Ronja Brier helps keep the store running. This means that she spends most of her day thinking about digital strategies, topic setting, target groups, and every now and then she still likes to write articles herself. You don't forget how to conduct interviews. After almost 10 years at the entertainment desk of Bild am Sonntag and Bild, the biggest newspaper in Europe, she then landed from the Bild night shift in San Francisco, suddenly in Saarbrücken as Deputy Online Director of the Saarbrücker Zeitung, and now she is happy to be back in Berlin.
Ronja, let's start with introducing Watson to people in the Western Balkans, because we here in Germany know what it is and how it works, but maybe a few words about the content and strategy and who are you actually trying to reach?
Yes, hello. First of all, maybe I'm really happy to be here. Thanks you for the invitation. And what I'm going to start with is saying that Watson maybe is the only online news medium for young people in Germany, actually. There have been several others. Right now, we are the only ones that also have deeper stories and research and we as a medium are really young ourselves. We started in 2018 in Germany, and we do not only write for young people, but Watson is also made by young people. In the team, we are 40 people, and half of the editorial team is under 30, and half of them is even under 25. So I think that is already quite special. And I think what is also different compared to other news media is that every content department of Watson is led by a woman. We got life and sustainability, we got entertainment, and we got the news desk, and every department of that is led by a woman. And even in general, I think maybe 60% of the whole team is female. So I think that's a really nice thing to start with, I would say.
Absolutely. That sounds very diverse, not just the content, but the whole team. Thanks, Ronja. Our second guest, Besa Luci, is the founder and editor-in-chief of Kosovo 2.0, a dynamic digital platform what is or has been making waves in the Balkans. Besa's unique perspective from the vibrant Kosovo media market promises to shed the light on our discussion. But let's hear more about Besa from our Sparky.
Besa Luci is the chief editor and co-founder of Kosovo 2.0, a print and multimedia magazine creating uncompromising journalism that listens to people's experiences, explains complex realities, provides context, and provokes conversations in Kosovo, the region, and beyond. Working in 3 languages since 2010, K2.0 has been a leading outlet in introducing profound storytelling and compelling visuals on the region's political and social transformation. Besa is also involved in public debates and initiatives pertaining to media innovation, journalistic excellence, and cultural development. She is also a documentary film producer and a writer.
Incredible biographies in both cases. Besa, welcome to you as well. You are, I don't know if you're in home or in a newsroom, because you look quite busy. I still have the same question for you because I think it will be quite neat to hear from you, from Editor-in-Chief. What's Kosovo 2.0? What it is actually? What do you produce and what is your profile?
Thank you, Jakov. Also, thank you very much for having me. So K2.0 is a print and online multimedia online magazine based in Pristina, Kosovo. We're more of a social political magazine publishing in 3 languages, so in Albanian, in Serbian, and also in English. What I think sets K2.0 apart from the other media in the region is its approach to journalism. We're very much doing narrative journalism, slow journalism, some of the type of fast daily news reporting, and contextual and explanatory journalism. So it's a combination of the kind of stories that we bring to the forefront, stories of people, of experiences that tends to be ignored or that want to be silenced. So we make sure that we're the ones kind of initiating discussion around those, particularly when it comes to human rights, but then also at the same time doing this very much needed explanatory journalism when it comes to ongoing developments and current developments in Kosovo and in the wider region.
Thank you, Besa. Obviously, we'll hear more about these outlets as the discussion starts. And before we dive into today's conversation, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Jakov Leon, a DW editor and DW Academy media consultant. But more importantly, I'm your host today.
Innovation SPARKS host is a content creator and supervising editor with 30+ years of experience, currently engaged as an audience engagement and development specialist, supporting DW's editorial team. In the past 10 years, he has also worked as a digital media consultant with DW Academy in Europe, Asia, and Africa, mainly focusing on digital storytelling, news production, gathering, and fact-checking, but also content production for children and youth.
Equally exciting and important information for our viewers. Don't forget that you can be part of this session by joining our vibrant Viber community, where you can share your thoughts, experiences, and obviously ask questions. So keep an eye on QR code we'll be sharing during the stream. Your questions will be addressed in the 3rd segment of the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's unearth the opportunities, if I may say, within the media market and look at the experiences and strategies our experts employ to, as I said, not just survive, but thrive in an era of news avoidance. We'll explore what works, what doesn't, and catch a glimpse of the future of online media, even in the face of mounting competition from new social media networks. To kick the conversation off, let's begin with, let's call it first-hand fact-checking, and ask our guests whether news or content avoidance is a real issue in their media landscape. And if yes, did such learning make them concerned about its long-term impact? Besa, maybe you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's different ways also to enter maybe this conversation. I don't think there's necessarily that much news avoidance, or let's say in Kosovo or in the wider region, as the problem or the issue is more with where people are getting their information from. And I think what we've seen over the past few years, maybe that there's been a decline of readers, of people, of citizens, audiences going directly, for example, to links of media, but there's this tendency to rely maybe more on whatever is posted or whatever they see on their social media profiles. So kind of getting rid of that choice element, I think, from the process that is very important. But also besides that, I think what we have noticed, I would say at K2.0 specifically, is that due to the fact that there's in general a deterioration of professional standards in the mainstream media environment, I feel like finally we are at the stage where people are now going out and looking for the credible sources, for the places where they can get well informed. Because I feel like there's also a bit of a frustration in the general population with bits and pieces of information, no context, no explanation, this highly politicized language that we've seen, for example, over the past 2 years, especially since we started also doing more content on ongoing developments and current events, that more and more people are coming also to us because they believe they can trust in our content. So I think news avoidance, we can talk about it, in the sense of like it's always there. There's always the risk that people are not going to be that interested in quality news, not on information, because people are always, they're getting fed information, whether it's on, like from television debates or from bits and pieces of like social media, like Facebook discussions, or from these tiny bits of information posted on online portals. But we have to insist that they're also going to the good information, to the credible, to the fact-checked type of information. So I think there's a lot of these different kind of dynamics playing out there when we're talking about news avoidance.
Mm-hmm. Ronja, what's your experience at Watson?
Well, maybe I'm going to start with a question, because I was wondering if news avoidance really is a new phenomenon. When I think at the times when I was a little child, I did not read the local newspaper every day, and I didn't read The Guardian or the New York Times. So, and my friends didn't either. So it was the same. I started when I got interested in that. But even if it's not new, I would like to say that there is no newspaper and no news portal existing right now who does not have to deal with news avoidance, in my opinion, who does not have to deal with the question, how can we really thrill people with our stories? How can we bring them to coming back again to us and not come once and then never ever again? And I guess there are certain things one can do. I think what is clear is that you can't do anything against news avoidance if you just produce more and more news. So you have to find another way, in my opinion. If you publish news, people have to be. You have to publish news that people are concerned with. You have to publish stories that people are really interested in, and you have to find out how you can do it. But maybe telling stories is not enough, in my opinion. So you have to tell also maybe a bit of fun. You have to tell solutions. You have to try to help the people, get close to them. And that's how we try to do it with constructive journalism, for example. And maybe you even have to do things like quizzes and games on your page, to be honest. In addition to news stories, of course, I think in the old times, there have been a lot of people just buying the newspaper because of the crosswords. And in my opinion, it's not a shame, it's human. And honestly, I know myself, I go on a news site to read a deep dive analysis about climate crisis. And I stay a lot longer on that site after I already finished that article, because I try out that riddle about, I don't know, European capitals, and maybe another riddle after the European capitals. And I think it's okay to keep the people longer on your site. And my final thought about news avoidance is, if the people don't come to your site, you have to go to where the people are. This can be social media, this can be like Instagram, TikTok. This can also be maybe public video. Meet them in the city, meet them at the train station, I don't know. And this can also be like fairs or conventions where young people are. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm very thankful that you also mentioned that one of the reasons to approach this topic is actually, what are the reasons? Is it about storytelling? Do we need to think about, different ways of, a package, a format, or whatsoever? Even if news avoidance doesn't really exist, because what I think we can all agree on is the fact that people just spend more time on social media, and I don't want to call them lazy, but still, somehow time flies and they're rather informing themselves there instead of going to a specific page. But that doesn't change much except of the rules of the game, right? I still want to ask both of you, so what changed in your workflows and your approach? Did not necessarily news avoidance, but do these trends somehow made an impact on you and your strategy by basically having a different approach, coming up with different storytelling or, packages? Maybe that's visual content, because we know that people like videos nowadays more. They're still, keen to read, but for some reason they get distracted with videos. Or you came up with something else. Maybe a few words on that. Besa?
Yeah. I mean, what we're doing at K2.0 is really looking at the different places where our audience is and where our audience is reading us, and kind of trying to understand really more in depth who are the different demographic groups, so as to say. And I think because we also publish in 3 languages, sometimes it complicates it a bit, but it also opens up a lot of opportunities, I think. So because we do this kind of very long narrative journalism, and there's this assumption, and a lot of people don't want to read long, but a lot of people actually do want to read long, because I do think that storytelling is also what keeps the world kind of rolling. The storytelling has always existed, and it will always exist. And we've had an increase of number of our audience, for example, coming to our long form section last year. For example, in 2022, 6 out of our 10 most read content at K2.0 were these extremely long type of pieces, which made us super happy, I would to say, because it also helped us shatter, or maybe sometimes inner assumptions that we might have. So that's why I think at the beginning I was speaking about the importance of quality. I do think that if you insist on quality, and if you provide people with compelling journalism, and if you know how to tell that story well, people will come to you. But of course, it doesn't end there. There is the demographics out there that want it more shorter. They want it more condensed. So what we're doing is really thinking what works on the different platforms across different social media channels, and really thinking of how can we not just post these stories and just kind of let them potentially take their own life, but how can we retell the story in a different format? So how can we tell it in a summarized textual mini explainer? How can we then just tell it all through 10 photos? Or how can we tease it, like the author, potentially through like a short video, so to make people come into the article? So these are some of the things we do. We do a lot of also public discussions around different topics, but also centered around our work. So this has been really, from the beginnings of K2.0, a huge part of our approach, because we never wanted our relationship with the audience to be kind of, and I mean, it isn't. Technology has changed that, but we never wanted to remain within this paradigm of sender-receiver type of thing. But how do we make sure that we continue talking with our audience around the issue, around the topic? So we do a lot of follow-up physical discussions for our articles, which prove very, I would say, very successful. And then also, I think what we're trying to do with different types of stories, and I guess we'll talk about that later as well with examples, but then we're thinking of what are the stories that within itself, they have the potential for different information within the story to be told differently. So some data, some with photos, some with video, sidebar information, graphs and whatnot. So like to provide also our readers with the possibility to have information presented to them differently. And why I think this works, so incorporating different kind of elements within one story, is because then all those elements you reuse for communicating the story on social media platforms. So you're really just looking at, when we're doing sometimes research for 5 months on a big story, you don't want to just like publish it and that to be the end of the day. Like we try to really, for the following 1 month, look at highlighting different parts of it in different platforms, whether online, whether physically.
Mm-hmm. Ronja, you also mentioned lots of possibilities. So maybe just a few words before we switch to presentations, what you have implemented or what you basically realized can improve or reach audience even more efficiently?
Yes, of course. I mean, we try to tell stories that people can only find like this at Watson. We try to tell stories that are especially Watson, and that are like perfectly fitting for the target group, so for the younger people. Sometimes I try to do a test in everyday life in our redaction. If you would put one of our stories in the layout of another online news portal, would you still see and feel that it's an article of Watson? It can be the picture that is different. It can be a headline that is more brave, or I don't know, in a way different compared to other news portals. Or is it the first sentence of an article, the whole topic maybe, that is completely different and that you could not find on other news portals? And we always try to have at least one certain Watson special thing in every of our articles, and I think this is something that we really do against news avoidance, because it was in our hope makes people come back to our site. But of course, you can also talk about the tone, about the way we talk, we tell stories. Let it be the fun way that people is told with this special humor, or a positive glance, the constructive journalism. And we see that it works kind of well. If we don't have comments on our site, but what we have is, of course, comments on social media. And what the people like there and what they share is the articles that are funny, that are the special Watson stories, and not the dry news. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's time to shine the spotlight on the platforms where our guests and their dedicated teams have poured years of effort and expertise even more. So these platforms deliver engaging daily content on crucial topics, as you heard. Today, our guests will share insights into their current endeavors, shedding light on what's effective and what isn't in their line of work. We will begin with Ronja. She will share her screen and also some insights. So I hope you're ready. While she's doing this, you can join our Viber community if you didn't do that yet, because you can share your thoughts and ask questions that we will address later on in the third segment of this show.
So I'm going to start with our guiding principles and the question how we work, and again who we are. So we switch to the second sheet already. Watson deals with topics that young people really care about. At least we try to. And Watson wants to write articles in which young people are able to see themselves. Our goal really is to be so close to them that they find it so interesting that they're going to share it to their best friends or to family. And Watson is not journalism. That is really important to us for an upper class in any way, or for people only in the big cities. Watson really wants to write for everyone. We want to make journalism for young people between 18 and 35, and that really means everyone. Next sheet is also about the question about how we work, and one of the answers to it is fast, really fast. So I think it's a bit the contrary to what Besa does. But Watson actually is a news portal, so actuality and speed comes first for us. We report about the relevant content, and we know that there's a relevance in two ways. You have the relevance that is objective, What means, are people affected with an earthquake, for example? But you also have the relevance that is subjective, and the question, how many people are interested in a topic. What is really, really, really important to us is the positive glance, or that what we call the positive glance. You can see it on the guy on this sheet here, maybe a bit. Watson does not only report on crises and catastrophes. Of course, we do report on crises and catastrophes, but we also, if we do, want to give possible solutions and good ideas and things that can give hope in the same way. So you can say that the mission of Watson is constructive journalism. Watson is serious too, when we have to be serious, but in our opinion, you can't stand seriosity the whole time. So we can also be easygoing and funny and shockingly honest in reporting about our topics, about everyday life. In this example here, for example, you can see an opinion piece about the German party, AfD. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a really right party. Not really, we don't really like them in our office. So it's a really sharp comment, really funny, but very honest and serious in the same way. This here is a perfect example for Watson wanting to be a kind of help, a kind of guide, like a really good friend, we always say, who has ideas and thought-provoking impulses and advice that make the complicated life a bit easier for the young people. This is an example about Corona, about COVID coming back, but we do just not only want to report about the comeback of COVID, we also want to explain to the people how dangerous it is and what they can do in the second step. So to summarize it, Watson does not write about young people, but for young people. This is a really big difference for us that we want to align. Yes, on this. This slide says that we report about what's important, but the question, of course, is what is important to us. I already mentioned the positive glance. Of course, you can find it on this slide. Equality is very important for us. If you talk about sexuality, if you talk about religion, if you talk about racism, and we write about equality in every kind of way. But of course, we do also write about entertainment and also sport, which is, important in a completely different way next to equality. Emotion is important in the way that we tell stories, because we want to produce we want to be close to the people. Good news is good news is a format, even format in sustainability. We are writing it once a day because the good news in sustainability is really rare. So we try to find every day one good news, one positive news in the Department of Sustainability. And in general, we say it's all about the mixture. Saying, of course, we need news. We need the topics everybody's talking about, but also the topics that are relevant for our target audience. And we want to surprise with topics that only we report on. And you must see this mixture directly on the homepage. This is a perfect example for the homepage. You got politics for young people at the top. You got the top news, which is a format in which you got the most important news of the day in just one article, very short, very nice to read. You got the good news in sustainability. but you also get entertainment and sports, you got another sustainability article, and you got streaming that's really a topic for the target group. This is the article that was on the top of the homepage that shows very well that we do focus on young people. In general, we report about potentially everything if it has relevance for the peer audience. And here is said why the young generation has to stand up if they want to change something. This article, in which we had 3 interviews with 3 young people who went into politics, shows very well that we talk with young people and not only about. And if we talk about mixture, we also have to talk about the mixture between topics that do create a big reach and topics that do perfectly fit for the target audience. And I would like to explain it with the section of entertainment. I don't know if you know her, that's Helene Fischer, one of the biggest stars in German entertainment. And we also report about her. We want to report about her because she's one of the stars everybody's talking about. But we do also have the celebrities for the target group. Taylor Swift, for example, who does also cause a big reach for the young people. And that's the third thing. We do have the stars only for the brand. When older people come to our website, we think that it's okay when they, from time to time, ask themselves who the guy or the girl is he or she does see on the page. And this, for example, is Bad Shay, and I would say my mother had never ever heard of her. And we think if that's the case, we do a good job. This can be rappers like her, but it can also be influencers. It can also be streaming topics, because younger people watch Netflix and Disney Plus, and that's why streaming is more important to us than RTL or other TV shows. We have a focus on equality, as I already underlined before. That means that equality is a topic in a lot of our texts. So we really have a focus on sexism, feminism, religion, racism, or homophobia. And we also use inclusive language, even if a lot of our readers do not like it, because we think it's important. And we do have from time to time topic weeks, like for the Women's Day or for Ramadan, when we published for several days articles about that topic. Sustainability is another of our most important, maybe the most important topic. Here, it's all about climate and you and me. And that's important to underline, because it's always the question, how does it work to live sustainably? And we would like to explain it to you. And we would like to explain it without pointing the finger, but with tips, with experiences, with reports, and with interviews, a bit like the big sister, if you want to say it like that, who does not make fun of you if you don't know anything. And we want to tell it with our good news. As I already said, one good news in sustainability, because there are enough bad news about sustainability in our world, I think. And it underlines the importance of the topic sustainability at Watson, because it's the only format that is published every day, really every day, 7 days a week. And it perfectly fits with the concept of the positive glance. But of course, we do also tell sustainability with personal stories, with reports and long portraits, always about the question, what does the climate crisis do to people? And of course, social media is very important to us, because social media is where you can really thrill young people. Our most important channel is Instagram, and Instagram works a bit like our website, but even a bit more funny, a bit younger, a bit flashier maybe. We do also have TikTok, even if we started only in 2023. But here is where the What's in Target group, the young people really are. So it's an absolute topic, an absolute focus topic for us. And we want to do more in Snapchat and YouTube. Of course, we also do have X and Facebook, even if these are no focus networks for us. And social media is also a source for us. Here you can find the best stories, and here's where people are talking about the topics that we could do stories about. We find them on Reddit, we find them on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, and X, for example. And I think, yeah, that's it. I mean, you can still look on where we want to go. We want to do newsletters. We also want to do more video, more podcasts. But yeah, I would like to finish there.
Quite comprehensive, and I think it also raises lots of interesting questions we will also then address later on. But let's switch from Berlin to Pristina. If Besa is in Pristina, I might even making a mistake. So Besa, it's your turn, your 10 minutes to walk us through what works for you guys at Kosovo 2.0, which is probably even the bigger challenge, if I may say. I might be wrong, because you, as you said earlier, produce content in 3 different languages. So you have kind of 3 different crowds to reach. But I'm letting you now to talk.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm just going to be showing a few pages of our website, and then also a bit our Instagram page that I think can give a feel of the different types of approaches that we're experimenting also with. So maybe just to give a sense to people, so this is the homepage of Kosovo 2.0. I mentioned it earlier that we do slower narrative, contextual journalism. We organize our content not necessarily through issues, topics, but more through formats. So we have the in-depth section, long form. These are very intensive kind of reported research pieces. We do one-on-ones, which are interviews with different people from the region, analysis, and then we also have the blog section, which for us is always super important.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So this is the homepage where I was just explaining a bit, and now people can also see it visually. So we publish content, new content, around 3 news stories weekly. A lot of our stories are, we have human rights is very important for us, also different kind of political, civil and political rights. A lot of our stories, we really try to whatever issues we're talking about, whether it's unemployment or poverty or gender discrimination, for us it's really always important to also talk to people, to let people themselves, citizens themselves share those stories, but also then looking at how we balance that with at the same time keeping institutions to account. There's 2 specific stories I wanted to share with you today that I thought also visually they are interesting. One of them, it's basically when we did a piece measuring the 2 years of the new government in Kosovo at the beginning of the year, where we basically wanted to examine 2 years of the new government in Kosovo, and we wanted to do it across different sectors, because we were expecting that, of course, in the mainstream media, in the public, there's going to be just there's going to be a lot of opinions, there's going to be a lot of analysis, but a lot of it is really just going to be thrown around here and there. So we wanted to make sure that we're bringing it all in one place and going through the different sectors that were super important in the past 2 years for people's quality of life. So looking at the economy, dialogue, media, judiciary, poverty, education, health, and human rights. So these are all clickable. So if you click in any of this section, it takes you directly. It takes you directly to, for example, if you want to read about human rights, you can click and it takes you directly to the section of human rights. And I think this is also one of the ways that we try to stay attuned to the fact that
Thanks, Besa. Let's continue conversation in the discussion. So basically what I've noticed based on your presentation is that you still believe in articles, you still believe in text, well-written stories, but in addition, like where you experiment, obviously, are visuals. So I wanted to basically ask you, did it pay off? What the numbers say? And is the engagement of users higher? Did it increase all in all? I mean, maybe you just started with this, but what's your experience so far?
Yes, it is definitely paying off, and we did have this very we put a lot of focus, especially on Instagram last year, and we felt the need that we just needed to be more present in a more compelling way, and we within the time frame of a year we increased, more than tripled our reach on our followers on Instagram and our reach on Instagram. So immediately it showed, the results show. And then the numbers show that, but I think also like the kind of feedback that we're getting from people, what I was talking about at the beginning, the fact that people that come to K2.0, they come because they can truly believe the information, and when they're lost in kind of the information ecosystem out there, they wait kind of for us to see when are they going to do the text explainer that actually is going to really help me understand this issue in depth and at its core. So we're seeing it also then based on just the increased interest of young journalists, of people wanting to write, to cooperate, to write for us. So we see it besides the stats, which we see it also in these other places as well, which I think is super important also.
Ronja, as far as I know, Watson is also playing with the visuals, but you still keep main focus on articles because that's part of your strategy, and it turns out it works.
Yeah, it turns out it works. We also know that video is important and we try to do more, but we are a small team, and with a few ones we have, we try to focus on articles, on writing, and on the way we write them. I was talking about that before, that fun, for example, that solutions, the positive lens is really important for us, and that's what we do right now. Of course, we do videos. We do videos on Instagram, for example. We do videos on TikTok, and even if TikTok is really like fresh for us, we also had big successes with videos with more than a million views. So that's a lot, I think. And if people are finding Watson via TikTok and then come back from time to time to our site, that's really cool for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the questions from the audience I will share now is, what kind of stories and what kind of topics do particularly well in both cases? Besa, is it entertainment or do serious topics prevail?
Yeah. Well, we don't do this kind of work. We don't do entertainment. We cover culture and arts, but not the mainstream necessarily arts and culture. So we really try to create a space where we initiate more conversation around the different works of different generations of artists or specific artists or cultural workers and whatnot, and trying to give them a place to also talk more profoundly about their work, because they're either sidelined, or when they're written or talked about, like it's very kind of superficial. So we really want to talk about like the essence of the work, and in general, what gets a lot of traction, I would say, at K2.0 is because we have the blog section. And actually, when we started on the online 13 years ago, we started as a blogging platform, and it's really these stories that sometimes that we get from the diaspora, so from the Albanian diaspora in the US, in Germany, and in Switzerland. We receive a lot of stories where they talk about this sense of a dual identity, not belonging in Germany, not belonging in Kosovo, neither fully Albanian, neither, for example, fully German. And they bring very, very interesting conversations around identity, but then also around cultural values and societal expectations. And those kind of stories that are personal, but they touch on something that is also extremely political, but also relatable. They tend to strike a lot of conversations, and they tend to get a lot of readership. So, and I really love that, because these stories really, what they do is they manage to challenge the core of some like values that maybe are problematic, or like talk about like what are different sorts of values that we can share together, which kind of what Ronja was talking about, and I fully agree. It's not just about telling stories, but how you tell the stories, how you use the language, how the language that you use helps you understand the world around you, who is being represented, but who is also not being, what we're not seeing. So asking those questions to ourselves as journalists and editors all the time is super important.
Mm. Ronja, you mentioned Helena Fischer, Dieter Bohlen, who are not that well known in the world, because it doesn't really matter. We have equals, which are probably even worse, but it doesn't really matter. The point of the story is, or the point of the question we heard was, are those stories that actually get the greatest numbers in terms of traffic? Or
yeah, that's what I was talking before about the mixture. The biggest reach does have the stories about entertainment and sports, definitely. So we really need them to have the reach every month. But as important as those stories about entertainment and sports definitely for us are the deep researches about in the sections of life, in the sections of mental health, that's really working very well. In the sections of life, it's also love and sex, if you want to talk about that. That's really, really, really big interest of the young people, and we have different columns about that topic. We have the questions of love, where a psychologist answers every week the biggest questions about that topic that maybe everybody has in its head and doesn't dare to ask them. We have a column about the horror dates with very personal stories somebody sharing to the people, and these are the stories that are also working really well, but that are also perfect for the topic, for the target group. And sustainability and things like that are important to us, but it happens it happens, but it happens not as much as entertainment and sports, that they got the big reach. Yeah.
So one of the questions we already kind of touched or covered, but it is actually quite accurate to ask and maybe even predict such future. Then in some years it would be even more trickier to keep audience on online platforms, meaning on websites. Some platforms do have this challenge of, I don't want to label this as losing readership, but still it seems like they are to at least, as you suggested yourself, go where the users are, right? So what is your prediction? Would you say that websites in general lose their impact in the media landscapes?
In general, like not ours.
No,
I think no.
no, okay.
I think no, because people always will want to be informed. They're gonna inform themselves with websites or or on YouTube, but also YouTube channels. They must get their content from somewhere, and of course they can do influencers, but there will always be media who will also publish YouTube videos and social media, and you have to find new forms, new ways to tell your stories, but the online news site will always be one of them, I guess.
Fair enough. Besa, anything to add?
Well, yeah, and also maybe we shouldn't be worried about it that much, even if websites kind of, I mean, there's always been transitions in media, from radio from print to radio to television to websites, and now, so even if they change, what's important is that the essence of our work doesn't change, and the importance that journalism will always be needed, because that first-hand verified good story, like it comes from journalists, like the article, the information, it comes from media. So even if we need to readapt and rethink where we're sharing that information, I don't think we should be worried about that, because that's what happened in the 2000s. I would say a lot of media were extremely stubborn. The big players, they were stubborn to rethink themselves and to understand what the trends and the patterns were pointing to, and they were very late in reinventing themselves, I would say, online. A lot of them picked up afterwards, the types of New York Times and The Guardian, but in general, there was that hesitancy. So I would say not to repeat the same mistake.
Mm-hmm. Next question relates to the previous one, basically. So it looks like colleagues are worrying a lot, maybe for a reason, I don't know, but still it's a completely legitimate question. Do you fear that the audience will just quit consuming your articles and then, they will switch to videos completely? Because in a way, it's true. In terms of consumption, people spend most of the time on the web using videos or consuming videos, which also makes sense because we all have high quality internet everywhere, basically. But maybe you want to add a thought or two on this matter.
What I think is the best way also here to have the combination of both. I think that switching completely to video will not be the solution, but combining text and video and graphic elements and maybe even audio only and combining the one with the other one will be the solution, I think, for the future.
Yes, I mean, I agree. And maybe just to add, I think I mentioned it, like our longest story at K2.0 are our most read stories in the past 2 years. So again, I think people, of course, will continue to read text if you give them good stories. Of course, I understand that, maybe less or whatnot in general, but it will not. The written text, I don't think it will die out. And exactly what Ronja said, always thinking of how to combine it also with other formats or elements.
And another question, which definitely refers to one of the highlights of buzzwords currently in the media universe, and that is AI. Do you see any impact yet? Are you maybe experimenting in this direction? Anything that you would like to share, or maybe even have a thought, because today I was hanging out with some group of journalists and managers from the Western Balkans, and they asked the innovation team about AI. Should we be worried about jobs, basically replacing humans, and writing some of these stories using AI technology?
Well, I just can't say that I'm not worried about that, but we are already experimenting with that. We are trying to make our jobs easier with that. For example, if I have an interview to do in the next days, why not ask IA what are the 20 most important questions you could ask to that person, and maybe 15 of these questions are absolutely bullshit, but maybe 5 of them are inspiring to you, or you can use 1 or 2 even in your interview. And that's one of the ways where I can help journalists with their work, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot really do everything with it, or you cannot, I don't know, but you can use certain things with it from that. And that's a really nice thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would also just like to add that we have to also be critical of also AI in the sense too, because of what kind of, I do think that it's going to end up also reproducing a lot of the inequalities that already exist in the world, and also enforcing certain points of view, ideological points of view of how we understand the world, because AI can function, it functions also on material available to it and in certain languages or whatnot, and okay, that's all going to change, but I'm talking about ChatGPT right now because that's something that we've used specifically. But I think that's also the human factor needs to always be involved and needs to also have that critical look on whatever kind of ways that we use AI, ChatGPT, or whatever. And like we need to make sure that we're giving it a critical assessment at the end.
Okay, let's end up with the following question. If you had any additional resources and wish to experiment something with, regarding innovations, what would that be? Like, is there anything that, if you had some money as a team, would jump on tomorrow and start trying it out?
I would do a video and a podcast studio in our office. We don't have that right now, but as I already underlined before, we would like to do more in video. We would like to do a lot more in podcast. And yeah, this would be a nice thing to start with.
Good. Besa, anything you would like to try out tomorrow or in the upcoming days if you had, let's say, extra 100,000 euros on your account? Team's account?
I would just like to engage more storytellers, more writers. Honestly, I think just more people that can bring ideas, bring vision, help build the vision together. I think we kind of sometimes forget that we also just need resources for people in our media newsrooms to be able to try new things. We need to have bigger teams.
Ronja, Besa, thank you very much. Dear listeners or viewers, we've reached the end of yet another, hopefully thought-provoking episode in our Innovation Spark series. We trust you have found our deep dive into the world of news avoidance and audience engagement enlightening to a certain extent. To catch this episode again or explore our previous discussions, you can find all of them on demand through the platforms we have mentioned below during the stream. Feel free to share these insights with your peers, meaning your colleagues, media experts, and help ignite innovation within your professional service. And remember to connect with our Viber group or Viber community, where you can stay updated on upcoming episodes and access content on innovation and AI. So I hope you enjoyed it. Your participation is always invaluable to us, and we eagerly anticipate your continued engagement. So thanks for watching. See you next time.